Finally, this week, the car industry has been told how government wants to manage the move from making petrol-driven cars with internal combustion engines in Tshwane and East London towards making electric and hybrid cars. As you know, a huge transition underway. Some countries are now planning to ban the sale of cars that use petrol and diesel within the next few years. That means the cars we make here won't be able to be exported to other countries. Professor Thinus Booysen is the chair of the Internet of Things at the Engineering Department at the University of Stellenbosch. Professor Booysen, good afternoon to you. This policy's taken a long time. Are we falling behind the rest of the world? You go to other places, you see movies, you'll see many electric cars. Here you see hardly any.
Good afternoon, Stephen. Thank you for what you're doing in the Fourth Estate, and thank you for having me. Yeah, I think we're already way behind, but better late than never, as they say. We've been waiting 30 months for this white paper to be released after the green paper, and you're absolutely right that other countries, thinking about European countries, but also developing countries, China and Southern American countries have already made this transition. Just as an example, the Chilean bus service in most of their cities is already electrified completely, and we're only starting in the Western Cape. We have 3 electric buses running, so we're way behind. And the risk to our economy and to our countries is quite substantial, yes.
Is it largely because of load shedding? I mean, we're on stage 4 load shedding right now, and here are you and I talking about electric cars. I realize that there are lots of different ways to charge electric cars, but it seems to me it's the obvious problem.
Yeah, so Stephen, this is such a multifaceted problem. So if you give me a chance, I'll quickly talk through some of those issues. So the one issue is that these vehicles are quite expensive, right? And that speaks to the local market, the local electric vehicle market. And I think to some extent that is not the part that really matters. And that's unfortunately to a large extent what this white paper focuses on. Then there's the other part, which is the export of the vehicles. And that is really fundamental, because that is something that either directly or indirectly affects almost 500,000 jobs in our economy. Just the vehicle production entity in South Africa, or the entities, are responsible for 77% of our GDP. So that's the big thing we need to be concerned about. But then separately, there's also, like you say, this big aspect of energy production. So I think there are things that need to fall in place, and they need to fall in place in a certain sequence. The first thing that we need to get right is local production needs to adapt so that we can facilitate exporting to keep the jobs, because the majority of vehicles that are made in South Africa are actually exported to the UK and to Europe. That's the first thing that we need to prioritize. And for that, I'm very thankful that the white paper does look at that. Then we can worry about local purchasing of electric vehicles much later, because as you say, we don't have the energy to service it. And with all the energy deficits that we have at the moment, electric vehicles will not only add a few stages of load shedding, it'll destroy our grid. We won't be able to charge even if a quarter of our fleet is electrified. Eskom will be on its knees. It'll not even be able to do load shedding. Then there's like you say, the issue of energy production. So the white paper misses, I think, a big point. Electric vehicles, it's called the white paper on electric vehicles. That's a misnomer. It needs to be the white paper on electric mobility. I can't stress this enough. With the advent of electric vehicles and electric mobility, we need to be concerned about not just the vehicle, but also the production and the distribution of energy. And in line with that, I think the white paper needs to focus a lot more on things like incentivizing local production of electricity with every vehicle that's purchased. In my opinion, every electric vehicle that's purchased, because of its high price, it's typically a high-earning person or a company that has the money to do so, incentivized with that should be local production of electricity. It almost makes sense in terms of the knock that our economy takes because of load shedding. It almost makes sense to make that energy provision free, to give solar panels away with every solar panels and a battery, I should add, with every electric vehicle that is sold, just to make sure that it doesn't affect our grid.
There are a whole lot of things that are going to happen now. So I imagine that the car door, the driver's door of an electric car is exactly the same as it is in a petrol car. But underneath the skin, they're very, very different. From what I can see, electric cars need less maintenance. There's sort of less moving parts. Moving parts are always what cause the problems. What I'm saying is this could be quite a big transition for the car industry. They will need different skills.
Exactly. And to be frank with you, Stephen, the industry partners we talk to have been estimating how many job losses they will see, or how many job losses will happen because of electrification. And the servicing of an electric vehicle is so low that big companies with fleets and internal servicing, they're probably going to lose 70% of the servicing jobs. And what the word that you just chose, I think that's key. It needs to be about reskilling. All those technicians that are typically working on the maintenance and servicing of petrol and diesel vehicles, they need to be reskilled to work in the energy sector. That's something that we need to do urgently. There's a lot of talk and a lot of hype about this green economy, but if we don't have the skills to work in that green economy, there's no way that we're going to take it up, and there's no way that we're going to make a difference using that. If you just allow me two more things that I think is very important to mention, two things that are missed in the white paper. The one thing is that they mention rail, and they mention this whole transition to electrification, and rail is only supportive of electric vehicles. But I think there's a lot more to it. There's freight, there's rail. All of those are not only in existence to support electric vehicles. They themselves can also be electrified, and we're falling behind in those spheres as well. So Kenya is already looking at electric freight, and also electric trains are investigated in Tanzania. And if you think about the copper theft problems that we have in South Africa, electric trains actually make perfect sense. So in broad terms, I think the white paper is fantastic, very late, fortunate that we have it, but I think there's a lot more that can be included. And a lot of it hinges on the money. What is going to be said in the budget speech? Because that's really where it happens.
Professor Thinus Booysen, thank you so much. Chair of the Internet of Things in the Engineering Department at University of Stellenbosch.